Alrighty, here we go again, people. I'm back on this YouTube channel, and we are talking about making your life exciting again and why you're bored. And boredom leads to unhappiness, which leads to depression, which also leads to anxieties. So many people in today's society is basically they become addicted to things. They have this feeling that normal life isn't interesting enough anymore. That's why we're online, we're on TikTok, we're on the phone, we're searching for something that gives us some form of pleasure or pain. I think that life for humans has always been hard, okay? But I think that now it's harder in unprecedented ways. We're in the electronic age, or whatever you want to call it, digital age, age of AI. We don't have any survival instincts, things that we absolutely must do to survive. I think that the way that life is really hard now is that it's actually really boring. The reason it's boring, is because our own survival needs are absolutely met. We don't even have to leave our home or apartment to meet every single physical need, as long as you're a certain level of financial well-being. Okay? If you look at leisure time, for example, people without a high school education have 42% more leisure time than people with a college degree. The point is that life is hard now in this really weird way, and that we don't really have anything that we have to do. So we're all forced to make up things, whether it's being a scientist or being an Olympic athlete or climbing Mount Everest, right? People vary in their needs for that type of friction. Some people need more friction than others, and they're really, really unhappy. I do think a lot more people I see with addictions and other forms of mental illness are people who need more friction in their life, right? They're really unhappy, not necessarily because there's something wrong with their brain, but because their brain is not suited to this world. So what's so pervasive in our now narrative is find your passion, right? And that's what I wrote about in Habituating Happiness. Find your passion, find your purpose, and in a way that's very good, because it has people out in the world seeking, looking, striving for something, But in a way, it can also be quite misleading in a sense that people aren't not entirely aware that the world is a hard place and that life is hard and that we're all kind of making it up as we go along. To me, one of the most significant findings in neurosciences in the last 75 years is that pleasure and pain are co-located in the brain, which means the same parts that process pleasure also process pain, right? So they work in a balance, and this is where a lot of stuff comes in for unworthiness. Right? When you experience some form of pleasure, when you experience a financial gain, when you experience all these things that people say that you deserve, or you tell yourself that you deserve, which is perfectly okay, the balance, to balance that back out, you will sabotage yourself into the pain, right? You'll bring some pain into your life because you're not supposed to feel that pleasure. That's what you feel, but it's a neurochemical reaction. So when we feel pleasure, our balance tips one way, and when we feel pain, it tips in the opposite direction. So one of the overriding rules governing this balance is that it wants to stay level. So it does not want to remain tipped very long to pleasure or to pain. right? And with any deviation from neutrality, the brain will work extremely hard to restore that level of balance, or what scientists call a homeostasis, right? The way the brain does that, with any stimulus to one side, there will be a tip and an equal and opposite amount to the other side, okay? It is absolutely the principal law of physics, okay? So, I like to watch YouTube videos. When I watch YouTube videos of Don Colum or something like that, it tips to side of pleasure. And when I stop watching it, I have a come down from that level, which is a tip to the equal and opposite amount on the other side, which is the pain side. And that's that moment of wanting to watch one more YouTube video, one more TikTok video. So the key is, if I keep indulging again and again and again, ultimately I have so much on the pain side that I've essentially reset my brain to what we call an anhedonic, or lack of enjoyment type of state, which is a dopamine deficit state. That the way in which pain can become the main driver is because I've indulged so much in these high reward behaviors or substances that my brain has had to compensate for that by way down regulating my own dopamine, such that even when I'm not doing that so-called drug like YouTube, I'm in a dopamine deficit state, which is akin to a clinical depression. So that's the thing, you keep watching those videos on YouTube, or you keep watching those videos on TikTok, you want to keep watching because the after effect of that pleasure is going to be that pain. So you just keep watching and keep doing things to not even gain more pleasure, but to maintain that level of balance, right? Because you do not want that level of pain that comes, that you subconsciously and unconsciously know that's coming after you turn off those videos, or turn off those video games, or whatever it is that you're addicted to. Now, this doesn't apply, this is the example of today's society for YouTube and for TikTok. I mean, it could be any electronical platform, right? I'm not specifically picking on YouTube or TikTok, but this is how the brain works. It could be a video game. It could be smoking cigarettes. It could be smoking something else, right? It could be drinking, doing some alcohol, right? It could be some other activity that you feel pleasure, climbing Mount Everest, as I mentioned, right? But it's something that you're trying to stop the pain from coming. So, if I've had anxiety, irritability, insomnia, dysphoria, and a lot of mental preoccupation with the using again or getting into drugs. And so that's the piece there. There's a single use which easily passes, but it's the chronic use that can reset the dopamine threshold, and then nothing at all is enjoyable. So I think that is really what I want people to tune into and get an awareness around, right? Once you tune into it, you can see it a lot more, and then when you begin to see it, it'll gives you and other people kind of a way to imagine what they're experiencing on a neurobiological level and understand it. And in that understanding, to get some mastery of over it. So, which is what it's really all about. So that's the thing for this video, is you must comprehend that the neurochemical balance inside the brain is extremely important, right? We want to stay at a level field, because that's just how the human mind works. So when you got your dopamine level, right, you're okay. When you get pleasure, hey, great. When you get pain, not so great, right? And I'm not saying to seek pleasure or to not seek pleasure because you don't want to experience the pain after the fact. We need to be aware of what is happening to ourselves so that we can experience more pleasure, and bringing that dopamine level to a more pleasurable state. So your level of dopamine is on the more pleasurable side and is less on the pain side. So we're taking the dopamine level, let's say at a level 3, right? And we're raising it up more towards the pleasure side. So let's raise that up to a 4. So now the level is at a 4, and now you're experiencing more pleasure in your life. So that is the indicator for the dopamine levels for the brain. And that is the end of this video. We will go on to study more things that for pleasure and pain, and habituating the happiness, and the processes of habit, the processes of habit replacements, right? Because you have bad habits. How do we replace those, right? And those would be a much better situation because you already have a habit in place. But if you take a bad habit away, the problem is nobody replaces the habit, and they always go back to the bad habits. So stay tuned.